Hi, this is Martin from Arcanum Vita with the astrological comment for the week ahead. The big energy this week, or the big event this week, is the Scorpio full moon, or the full moon in Scorpio tonight, which is going to be quite wonderful to see in the sky. It's a Scorpio moon, so obviously Scorpio gets a little bit of a bad rap as being ominous and dark and penetrating and all those sorts of things. However, it's actually quite a lovely transformative moon with a very deep quality about it that's actually quite settling and soothing, and it's going to give us a lovely energy to sit with and be in, and sort of be able to process, I guess, a lot of the changes that have happened lately and all the things that have been going on, and the real reorientation to the world outside of us at this time. So it's one where you probably, the way I look at it, it's a full moon that kind of feels a bit like you want to jump into bed and snuggle up and whack the doona on and just sort of sit there and process it all, it's going to be quite nice for that, because both the sun and moon for the Scorpio full moon are in nice positive aspect to Neptune in Pisces, and that's a very sort of dreamy, relaxed, cruisy energy. It's sort of, you could just drift off with it, and it's lovely and healing and nurturing in that way, where we can probably let down a lot of our guard, let down a lot of our defenses, and just sort of surrender a little bit to the flow for a while with this full moon. There is a bit of a challenge in the moon, the Scorpio full moon, in that Venus, which we are in the Taurus season now, Venus, the ruler of Taurus, is in hard aspect to Neptune. So that Venus, typically Venus in Taurus is value, worth, what we're manifesting, what we're bringing into reality, our sense of material anchoring, how we generally orientate ourselves to the idea of what the real world is. That's in hard aspect to Neptune, which, in a negative sense, it can be challenging in the way that it's disillusionment. It can make us feel a little bit like we're suffering or at the behest of things, or it can really sort of dissolve our firm focus around things. And so that challenging aspect could bring about a situation where we feel as though there's just no real clear way forward, or no real clear position in the world, or things are very, very uncertain, and it's that whole I don't know where I'm going, or don't know who I am, or where I'm going, and am I worth it, and is it going to be okay, and it's just going to make us have to be very aware not to be too sensitive to the external impressions around us. It's probably a good week to be quite discerning around what you hear outside of yourself, and try not to take it to heart, and just when you think of Venus in Gemini, there's always going to be an A and B, and so you look at the two sides of the coin and go, okay, here's what one thing's saying, here's what another thing's saying, and what is my take on that? How am I going to bring that in together? And the challenge here with Neptune, it's not that we're all going to be overwhelmed by the external world. The challenge is actually Neptune in Pisces is encouraging us to tap in to our own intuition and our own sort of feelings and our receptive side of our nature. So if we can have a healthy dialogue within us to say, well, look, I know where I'm at, and I know where I'm going, and I'm actually, regardless of what's happening, I am still a very creative, empowered individual that can take action here and bring about the changes that I want to see in the world. So we can actually tap into our receptive side and encourage that, and encourage ourselves to only take on the impressions that we feel are going to provide us with the right perspective to encourage our creative process. So it really is about us being the ones that use our own sensibilities to determine our take on the situation, and then let that empower us to make the appropriate decisions or changes to move forward. So that's one way of looking at that aspect anyway, but there's many ways around it, but it's basically A and B, but we have the power to generate the C. So and how do we do that? Well, we listen to ourselves, and we trust ourselves, and we even sort of put it out there and just say, well, okay, what's the right way here? What's the way to go? So yeah, just relax with that. So I mean, on the downside, we could throw ourselves into bed for the weekend and just snuggle up and hide, or at the same time just relax to the flow and realize that there is this little bit of indecision around us at the moment, but trust that we can navigate our right path through that. So that's the big aspects around that. I just want to quickly talk as well around the other big thing that's happening this week is the Nodal Axis is changing from Cancer Capricorn, which it's been for the last 18 months, which that's the axis that has to do with worldly structure and career and success and establishment versus internal roots and home and foundations and what nourishes us and what we draw from. So like from our home we go out into the world and establish ourselves and build something, but we must return home to recharge and nourish ourselves. So that's been the big dynamic that's been at work for the last 18 months. And it's interesting that as a climax or a finale to that, we find ourselves all very much at home and anchored within our roots and having to draw from our own sort of sense of security, while the perception is out there that the world and the structure around us is unreliable and sort of dissolving at this time. But it's just a rebalance. It's to give us a point of orientation where we can create the appropriate dynamic between the two, home versus the external world, and re-establish that. So that's just something that's good to bear in mind. Like if you look back to the last time that we exited the Cancer Capricorn axis was 2001, in October 2001, and at that time, about a month before it changed signs into Gemini Sagittarius, if you look back, that was when 9/11 happened. And so there was this precipitating crisis around that time that sort of shook us up and made us look at security versus the world around us, and it sort of undermined the structure of things and all that sort of thing. So and then a month later, that's when the axis changed. So if we go back a month from now and look at the upset that we've just been through, and then look at what we're moving into now, it's a very similar energetic, different events obviously and different things that went down, but it's a similar energetic orientating us to the value of home versus the world, and finding the right balance and relationship between the two. So now that we move into Gemini Sagittarius, the south end of the node is generally what we're meant to move away from, and that's in Sagittarius, and the north end of the node is what we're meant to move towards energetically. So again, for the last 18 months, we've meant to be moving towards home and roots and foundation, and away from a preponderance of concern around structure, and find the appropriate balance. And now we're meant to move more towards Geminian things and away from Sagittarian things. And in short, Sagittarius is expansion, external, international affairs, expansion, higher view, the journey, vision, projection, all those sorts of things. That's weakening right now. So if you look at the world, it's very easy to see that our vision for the future, or our idea around where we're going or where we're expanding to, is starting to become unstable. Like we don't know what's going on or where we're heading. And what we're meant to be doing is moving more towards Gemini, which is doing and communicating and local affairs and, the day-to-day. It's the apprentice sign. It's ruled by Mercury, which is about learning and communication and exchange and things like that. So in a way, it's only natural that the expansion, the vision of ahead is dissolving, because that's our opportunity now to focus more on what's right here in front of us and how we can set up dynamic exchange between us on a local day-to-day level. So it's just to cover that from that perspective, but there's lots more to it which I'll touch on as we move forward. But like, I just wanted to cover that and look at how we're sort of seeing that this new moon, this full moon in Scorpio is bringing about this major deep shifting energy to nourish us, while giving us the opportunity to sort of transform our way of orientating to this new node. And in a way, if you look at the energetics behind the moon, the node, when it came in and all that, it's very much a time of seed forming and seed laying. So even seasonally, we're in autumn. The growth is coming off. Everything's becoming dormant. It's all encapsulating into a seed form where we can, bring it forward. So this is the time where we get to actually form our seed and look at what we're going to do moving forward, and not worry too much about, oh my goodness, there is no forward and all that sort of thing. There is a forward, but it's the orientation that we must change. It's how we approach it. It's not to just hope and look out there for it. It's to actually make it happen here, make it go on here now, and form the right connections to do that. It's interesting. I looked at the ruler of, esoterically, the ruler of Scorpio is Uranus, and Uranus is at 7 degrees of Taurus right now, and the symbol that surrounds that position in Taurus is the imagination to create a future. And so it's interesting. Uranus is the agent of change and revolution and bringing about new structures and forms. And in Taurus, it's about the material world and the earth and things like that. So we've got this opportunity to imagine and create and put into action on a local level a whole new future that didn't exist prior to now. And it very much involves the way we orientate ourselves towards our values and what's important to us and all those sorts of things. So that's very, very important. And that's an opportunity that's been instilled with this full moon, and this full moon is going to give us the opportunity to sort of settle into that and find the appropriate place in ourself to orientate ourselves to this change. So it's very, very lovely. Yes. So I'll leave it there, but please do check out our Facebook page. We do weekly posts. So we have an astrological post on a Sunday for the energy, a bit of a comment on the energy for the week ahead. And we do a post on Friday, a biodynamic perspective, which sort of we use the garden to look at how the energetics of the planets at the moment can play out in our day-to-day affairs and in our real life. Feel free, please share, and I hope you enjoy. Take care.